tell her her subject had no bread. Do you know what she said?
Let them eat cake.
Who took the bomb?
We're getting screwed, man. Every time we turn around, we're getting screwed. Oh, the revolution's going to be through podcasting for sure. That's the only way we talk. It's the little guys that take the brunt of everything. It's got to stop. Peasants, man. We're just peasants. Every one of us. You watch those old movies, you see the peasants in the background, kings and queens walking around. We're those people. We're those people. Good morning, peasants. Welcome to another episode of The Peasant's Perspective. We're so glad to have you here today. We are spanning half the country.
Yeah.
We're figuring it out. We're still not AI, I promise you.
Nobody's found me yet.
Good morning, Whedon boys. Good to have you again. I think you're on your commute to like an oil field or something like that. I think if Whedon boys is the right person, pretty sure you're in the chat, the Telegram chat. If you're not, Whedon boys, if you're not in the Telegram chat, you need to be. So get a hold of me because you need to be in the Telegram chat. But I'm pretty sure you're also Pony Boy. If you're not, then you're not. And let me know. You need to be added to the Telegram living room because you are a dedicated man. I look forward. I was just going to say, Ron, it's just us today, but nope. Whedon boys joined us. So that's great. All right, guys. And so, yeah, yesterday was kind of fun. Like the marination of what was released on Friday. You've got what was released on Friday. Well, Tulsi Gabbard made a criminal referral to the DOJ for sedition and conspiracy and whatnot. Yay. For Barack Obama, James Clapper, Brennan, Lisa Monaco. That's a name that I really want people to remember. Lisa Monaco. Lisa Monaco was Obama's fixer. Lisa Monaco was involved in the meeting where they hijacked the Russian assessment and said Russia did interfere when in fact they had previously said they did not interfere. And she ended up,
Kind of key.
Yeah, kind of key. And she ended up in the Biden DOJ where she was part of the leadership team that was on my prosecution. So keep an ear out for that name. If she gets indicted, I'm just going to be like, I don't wish what happened to me on anybody. Like, I don't want to become the thing I hate, right? I don't want to become that. But at the same time, justice is justice. If you live by the sword, you die by the sword. It's that simple. If you're going to live by lawfare, you're going to die by lawfare. I got nothing to do with it. I'm not throwing the stones, but if you're going to do that, do it right. And they have abused it. So John Comer, one of our, I don't know if I'm supposed to say his last name, but John, one of our living room chats, he wrote something this morning. He wrote a beautiful little soliloquy. And I think John is like a great ombudsman for the average man. He's a gentleman farmer from the South. And we love John. He's a deep thinker, and I just love him. He says this: I know I probably should give up expressing myself online for obvious reasons. It's just so odd to me how easily we can justify bombing Iran or sending supplies to Ukraine. America has been a nonstop blood factory. We paint the world in red mist. We grease the machinery with the innocent lives of children. We worship Moloch under the banner of Jesus' name. We've committed countless whores and bathe in the blasphemous bubbles, filling our gilded imperial tubs. It is really amazing, but the grace of God extends to us. But we cringe at the thought of harming a single hair of our precious self-selected, unelected dignitaries. We cower at stripping the blank checks from their coffers, signed America the Beautiful. We treat corruption like it's a sacred American pastime, if it's possible. Could we corral just a little bit of that darkness that gallops so free, call it over with oats, pet its mane, gain its trust, saddle it with a worthy purpose, and then ride that effort into the nearest blackest pit until it boils over with blood. Let it tear through the poison vapor and debris until that searing white hot light falls upon every bulbous shadow, popping like party balloons at a raucous birthday celebration. Can we select a random stick, call it Law and Order, deputize it, legalize it, and beat the paper mache off this callous shell until candy falls to the ground like seeds of hope for future generations? Let's make a fun day, an annual holiday to remind the sons, oh bitches, what happened the last time the piper was paid. Disclaimer. No corrupt dirtbags were actually harmed in the writing of this soliloquy. Unfortunately, as written for entertainment purposes only. So, I think that expresses the feeling of every gentleman out there who's looking at this, and this reminds me of the men who just wanted to be left alone. Right?
Yeah.
And I love it because John writes that this morning, those deep thoughts, that beautiful soliloquy, and then he's going to go out and feed his goats. So I just love it. He's the quintessential peasant. I absolutely love John. So yeah, I think I think his name is Sam Faddis. He was on Bannon yesterday, and Sam Faddis is a former CIA intel analyst, operative. I don't know, these guys are like ghosts in the wind, but he was basically saying he was, I think it was in Pennsylvania, and he was going to some GOP meetings or whatever. And he was like, the base absolutely is out for blood on this Epstein stuff, the justice stuff. Marjorie Taylor Greene came out, I think it was yesterday. If not, Politico wrote about it yesterday, but she was saying that, Trump, you can't dangle red meat to the base, AKA Epstein, elite, criminals, and not do something about it. Otherwise you're just the same as them. So I think that is a sentiment that is more and more being amplified. And I think Trump's hearing it. Here is Mark Victor Hansen. Is that right? There's a couple of Mark Victor Hansers, like the Chicken Soup for the Soul guy. And anyways, Mark Victor Hansen here.
David. Okay.
What?
Never mind.
Oh, so he was
in essence,
this is the wrong clip. What did I do? I didn't make it go away.
No, but that wasn't Victor Hansen.
Huh?
I don't know, but that wasn't Victor Hansen.
Nope, this is him right here. So he was on Laura Ingraham last night, and she was asking him about just all the revelations that came out on Friday. And as always, he has such a calm way of kind of explaining things. He's one of the great, I would put him beyond just a political analyzer. He's almost like a philosopher. You know what I mean? He kind of considers these things deeply.
We knew this was filled with corrupt intentions, and these findings were probably skewed. Victor, this really isn't surprising to us, but tell me your reaction to what we've now learned, given what Tulsi Gabbard has declassified and these two different criminal referrals, one from the CIA director and one from the director of the DNI.
Well, I think it's pretty clear they're going to have written evidence and probably testimonials from these so-called great intelligence authorities at the level below Clapper and Brennan. And that's going to be damning. And the only mystery, Laura, is whether Barack Obama will say that Clapper and Brennan overread the assessment and misled him, or whether Clapper and Brennan say that Obama misled them. But otherwise, everything is pretty clear. The other problem is none of these people have any credibility. James Comey pled ignorance, amnesia 245 times under oath to this House Intelligence Committee. He leaked a confidential conversation with Donald Trump that he memorialized to the New York Times via a third party. Clapper, remember, he lied under oath to Congress, and he said that the NSA did not spy on people. Then when he was caught, he said it was the least untruthful answer he could give. Brennan lied twice. He said that the NSA didn't.
This is the least untruthful answer he could give.
Which is probably 100% true.
Well, I'm not going to lie about the lie.
Right. I mean, that's our job here. That's what we do.
Just think about that. I don't remember exactly what the question was, but it was like, so does the NSA spy on American citizens? No, the NSA doesn't spy on American citizens. But you are. Well, that was the least offensive way I could say it. Wait, well, what were you going to say? That we spy on American citizens? It's like...
spy on people, lie. He said that the CIA didn't tap in to Senate Stafford computers. That was a lie. Both of them were co-architects, let's not forget, of the 51 intelligence authorities. So you could really say, as a historian, a historical period, they affected the outcome one way or the other of the 2016 election and maybe the 2020, because they leaked that false narrative of Donald Trump colluding with the Russians to manufacture Hunter's laptop right before the second debate and to arm Joe Biden to go in there and lie to the American people that his son's laptop was a product of Russian and Trump collusion. So they've got a long record of no credibility, and I don't think they're going to be convincing in any excuse or apology they give.
Yeah.
Hey, Taylor.
Yeah.
Is there any connection between Trump and Russia without these people and the story that they put forward? Is there? I mean, any?
Other than a couple visits, there's no
Right.
business connections. I think at one point Trump, I heard this, and this could be fake too, right? But at one point Trump was maybe interested in building a hotel in Moscow. But this is before, like, this is like when.
That's pre-2016.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I don't think he became president. He's like, let's get a hotel in Moscow. And I don't think it was 2015 or 14. I think it's like 2005 or something. You know what I mean? Like,
something like that.
Yeah, and keep in mind, he's got hotels and resorts in dozens. I don't know, a couple.
I was just thinking about that.
UAE. I think he's got a golf course in UAE. Obviously, he's got the golf course in Scotland, and I'm sure he owns property, plural, in random places.
Yeah, I was just thinking that, you know, when they start pointing fingers, probably somebody's going to say, well, you know, some of these Russian stories were true, some of them were fake, okay, but you know, some of them were true. And they're like, I don't think so. I don't think any of them were true.
So what happened to understand the Russiagate thing? Let me just kind of explain it really briefly. But essentially, it's a campaign. Hillary Clinton versus Donald Trump. Both parties, both candidates are going to do opposition research on the other. Trump, his opposition research resulted in things like the Access Hollywood tape, right? That was released right before the debate, where he says sometimes women are, you know, so turned on by billionaires that they'll let you grab them by the blank, right? Well, he didn't say I grab them by the blank. If you go listen to it, it says they'll let you, as in he's referring to like powerful men can attract beautiful women. Mm-hmm. Okay, you know, when he apologized to Rose, said that was locker room talk. I'm kind of ashamed of it. And most men are like, yeah, the locker room's a bad place to be on tape. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, it's probably not a good idea to film the dorm room or the barracks or the locker room. You know, it's like, okay. And I'm sure you ladies on your little ladies' nights out, some of you have had some untoward conversations too. Okay. It is what it is. We live in the world of digital. They were on a hot mic. He got caught. Darn. Okay. This pales in comparison to some of the other scandals, like, you know, an intern in the White House and something about a cigar. And, you know, we go on and on. So it's kind of like, pick your poison, right? Again, I didn't vote for Trump. I voted against Hillary Clinton. You could have put a sack of potatoes, right? And I would have voted for it. I would have written in Mr. Potato Head before I was going to vote for Hillary Clinton. In fact, the whole concept of a write-in protest vote came from my 5th grade history teacher, who was like, I've never voted for president. I write in Mickey Mouse every year. And apparently there's thousands of Americans that do. Eventually we're going to take over the country. You know, it's like, so I was not voting for Hillary Clinton no matter what. So you could have thrown anything at me, even the Russian collusion. I'm like, Putin's not that bad. You know, if Trump's a Manchurian candidate, I mean, Putin's doing pretty good over there in Russia. I'm just kidding. Government, don't listen to me. So what they did was Hillary Clinton did the opposition research, and in addition to whatever they did dig up, they paid Fusion GPS, which is one of these opposition research firms full of former Intel analysts and whatever, including a gentleman named Christopher Steele. Christopher Steele's a former MI6 operative who worked at Fusion GPS. At Fusion GPS, there was a woman who worked there named Nellie Orr. Nellie Orr was married to Bruce Orr, who was the number 3 in charge at the FBI. So Hillary Clinton paid Fusion GPS through the intermediary of the law firm Perkins Coie, which you may have heard of, right? Which is involved in all the shenanigans. It was Mark Elias's firm till he was basically fired after the 2020 election. And but that's who's they've used to overthrow state elections, challenge federal elections, and the Democrat Party, it's like their main law firm, is my understanding. So they paid Fusion GPS from the Clinton campaign, who paid Christopher Steele, who then manufactured with a guy named Doroshenko, who was basically drunk in a bar. And they sat down one day and said, what are all the things we can throw at Trump? He peed on hookers in a hotel in Moscow where Obama had stayed as some act of disrespect. Never happened. His attorney, Michael Cohen, had traveled to Prague to do something. Never happened. Every single allegation in the Steele dossier that was made turned out to be false. There was one shred of evidence that was fake. It was 100% manufactured. They produced that Steele dossier. Fusion GPS then delivered it to the Clinton campaign. The Clinton campaign started talking about Russia, and this was supposed to be kind of their October surprise. So I think it was just before the election, they announced something about Russia and Trump and the Alpha Bank server pinging Trump Tower, which ended up just being junk mail, by the way, and totally wasn't anything else. And that was pushed by Jake Sullivan, who went on in the Biden administration to be the national security director, or the NSA. Was it NSA?
National Security Advisor.
Security advisor, yeah. Who's allegedly one of the people who was basically the shadow president. So Jake Sullivan pushed that fraud. Hillary Clinton started talking about it. And the idea was, and then they leaked that dossier. The FBI got a hold of it. They leaked that dossier to different media outlets, Wall Street Journal, New York Times, and they started dripping a couple stories. And then Huffington Post, rather than take one page and leak it, they published the whole thing. This is blogosphere. This is the new age. Post all. And as soon as you post it all and you saw the dossier in its completion, you're flipping through and you're like, peed on a couch, paying to overthrow election. Like, this is incredulous. This is unbelievable. Well, different, like, I can't remember what, there was one of these reporters that works for the Atlantic or one of these, left-wing rags, chased down every piece of evidence. He went to Prague. Oh, Michael Cohen did go to Prague, but not the Trump's attorney, some other random Michael Cohen, right? They couldn't find even the hotel that Trump allegedly stayed at. There isn't a room that Obama was in. You know what I mean? That nothing added up to anything. So at that moment, there were text messages that flew back and forth between different people doing this, say, oh my gosh, you weren't supposed to do this, to the Huffington Post reporters. We're all going to hang. I mean, they were saying things like, we're all going to hang, because they knew they were part of an operation to smear Trump. That just kept going. The media just kept feeding this Russia thing as they were trying to, even though we had the whole Steele dossier, they were still trying to write these little reports. And eventually they stopped writing reports and they just started doing, the FBI is investigating this. The FBI is investigating this. This led to the December 9th meeting. Just prior to December 9th, there was a intelligence assessment that was looking at this Russia thing. Because remember, Nellie Orr at Fusion GPS, through her husband Bruce Orr at the FBI, laundered the dossier into the FBI. They also delivered it to John McCain, who walked it to the FBI. So now you had multiple sources. So then the FBI, who had leaked this out, who then had it doubled back to them through John McCain and others, then used that fake stuff, which they knew was fake, to go to a FISA court to get warrants to spy on the Trump campaign. They spied on Carter Page, Papadopoulos, and Caputo, and everybody. They do the two-hop rule. You get one person in the campaign, pretty soon they've got everybody, right? Mm-hmm. So they spied on all of it, using this laundered fake stuff that they knew was fake, that they leaked out to get published in Yahoo News and these other places, that then put on FISA warrants, which allowed them to spy on everybody. Mm-hmm. That's how they did it. Fake stuff, leak it out, turn around, use it to justify as a predicate for this investigation. The intelligence community came out with a report saying Russia did not interfere in the 2016 election. They did not interfere in the cyber stuff. It didn't change votes. Essentially, there was a small amount of money spent on Facebook ads, both against Trump and against Clinton. These are basically troll accounts. They're not necessarily connected to the Kremlin. They're just based out of Russia, which, by the way, a lot of your Nigerian scams are based out of Russia. Okay, so it's kind of along those lines. So, but then they pulled the presidential daily brief that would have presented the intelligence community report saying that Russia did not interfere. And they pulled it. Trump didn't get the briefing. And then Obama came in and said, tell the intelligence community to redo the assessment and direct them to say that Russia did interfere, thereby giving legs to all the accusations that had been laundered into the FBI. And they were going to use the mere fact that there was an investigation to, basically ruin Trump. And
so lies to bolster the lies.
Lies to bolster lies. And meanwhile, the whole time, Trump and his MAGA deep base that were following this were like screaming, what's going on? Devin Nunes, Kash Patel at the House, they started looking into this. They realized that this was a big coup. There were some good patriots in the FBI that showed up outside John Solomon's house at his mailbox one day and said, listen, we're going to lose these tools that help us hunt down real bad guys and terrorists because they've used it for a, quote, political dirty trick. Please report on it. So then you had John Solomon leaking stuff, getting information and tips from them, is exposing the FBI. So you had conflicting information. And as the people were like, do we trust Ron Bennett or do we trust John Solomon? We were kind of going through this back and forth. Good morning, Shantini. And Tiffany and Carlito, thank you for coming. And Fraser, good to have you again. So they were trying to figure out, we as the people, only as good as the information we have, are sitting to judge between the two. So things continue on. Mueller gets appointed as the special counsel, and his job is to delay, dig, subpoena, ruin lives, brings like Steve Bannon for 16 hours of interview, Donald Jr. and Eric Trump, tons of depositions. And every time you do this, you create all kinds of liability. You've got perjury traps. You've got, if they're lying about the base information and you're like, that didn't happen. And they're like, it did. You just committed perjury. What are you you committed perjury by, you know what I mean? They were in a imagine, right? Like the amount of money they spent on lawyers, the amount of political damage and capital that was spent basically trying to say, I'm not a Russian asset. Unbelievable. This same DOJ that's doing this at the same time has a whole bunch of other scandals happening, right? One of them is the Weiner laptop. Do you know the Weiner laptop?
Mm-hmm.
Up in New York, Anthony Weiner. I think he was the, he was a congressman, and then I think he ran for mayor. Anyways, mm-hmm. So he had a laptop that was lost and found, or he got basically caught texting a underage kid pictures of his hoo-hoo. And when that laptop was found, this was the headline here. That's not the one I was looking for. Okay, so when the Inspector General report on this little laptop came out, this is what Fox News put on the page that was reported by these cops right here, who, by the way, 12 police officers that viewed Anthony Weiner's insurance file on his laptop, 9 of them have since committed suicide. Okay, so when they wrote their little thing, this is what it said. Weiner, spelled incorrect, texting 15-year-old sexually explicit photos. This is like the notes they had. Initial analysis of laptop, thousands of emails, Hillary Clinton and Foundation, crimes against children. That's what they put on their report. So then,
violations of the Espionage Act.
Powell, and I don't know where she gave this speech, to become kind of famous now. We're going to listen to the whole thing. This is what she has to say about the laptop. So keep in mind, the people that are laundering this Russiagate document to try to get Hillary elected have just found this laptop with Anthony Weiner, who's a prominent Democrat politician that's rising star, whose wife is Uma Aberdeen. Who is Uma Aberdeen? Uma Aberdeen was Hillary Clinton's top aide. She's like her right-hand woman, okay?
Yeah.
She was married to Anthony Weiner. And that's why Anthony Weiner had Hillary Clinton's updates, because Anthony's and his wife's computer had synced up. Okay, so he had her emails, and they had a blackmail file that he was keeping, probably to keep their political aspirations in line, right? You got a little junk on your boss. You make sure your boss doesn't ever throw you under the bus and make you the scapegoat. When he texts this underage girl, obviously that triggers a, hey, come grab the laptops type of warrant subpoena. And voila, what did we just uncover? So news of this kind of breaks out, and people are kind of calling for justice. And it's right at this moment when Hillary Clinton's foundation emails an insurance policy folder with blacktop that and we're going to hear Sidney Powell describe was horrific. Okay. All of a sudden, when that happens, that's when the Steele dossier gets purchased. Do you see what happened there? You got one scandal. We need to cover it up with another scandal. We need to create noise to block out the signal here. So this is what Sidney Powell, who at this moment, she's an appeals attorney. She's not a traditional take you to court on a normal defense thing. She's an appeals attorney. She's the one that goes through and dots the I's, crosses the T's, makes sure every single civil right and, court procedure is followed perfectly accurately. So this is someone who's highly detailed in the process of how warrants are issued and all that kind of stuff. I think it was 2015, no, I think it was 2019, 2020, she was awarded the top attorney international or something like that. So she's not some schlep that's prone to conspiracy theories. She doesn't say things that aren't true. She's in fact, when she pled guilty to that misdemeanor in Atlanta and she had to write an apology letter, she was like, I apologize for exposing election crimes or something like that. Sidney Powell. That was her apology to the plea guilty on the misdemeanor. And what that was basically she had gotten a hold of one of those Dominion machines without a warrant, researched it and released the data. And that was the misdemeanor. So she's like, I apologize for illegally getting a hold of a machine and exposing election fraud. So,
and I'd do it again though.
She also became General Flynn's lawyer after he made his plea deal and was able to never actually got the plea deal backed out of because Judge Sullivan appointed his own prosecutor as a former judge that came out of retirement to do it. Whole mess. Eventually Trump had to get pardoned. Okay. So she's been at the forefront at that time frame of kind of what it is the FBI is really doing, which is what makes the cover up so obvious, the timing of all this. So this is what she has to say about this Weiner laptop.
Clear violations of the Espionage Act and really no issue about intent, despite President Obama proclaiming otherwise. And of course, you realize the reason that Hillary had to be protected was because he was writing her on that secret server using an alias, which shows that he damn well knew and had approved in advance her use of the secret unsecured server. On top of that, there's the Anthony Weiner laptop, which I don't know if you heard this. I wrote an article about that too. 675,000 Clinton emails when they got Anthony Weiner's laptop in a search warrant because of all his sex perversion issues. It was all the Clinton emails, the Clinton Foundation, her Secretary of State emails, Huma Abedin's emails. Lots of people emailed Huma as a proxy for Hillary, and it included what Comey called I must wave my hands more than most people. The golden emails, because they were the BlackBerry backup emails that they were supposedly just looking for everywhere.
These are the BlackBerry emails that they destroyed with BleachBit and a hammer. They had the backup of it. That was so damning, what was in her BlackBerry, that when it was subpoenaed, they took BleachBit, which is I think it's a software program that's supposed to wipe it, and then they took hammers to it. That's how much they did not want the information on the BlackBerry to be released. And lo and behold, it shows up on this laptop.
Diligently. Well, guess what they did when they found them on the Weiner laptop? They got a search warrant for things that didn't include the BlackBerry backup emails. So when they told us, when he stood there and said that day, we've reviewed all the emails now, there's nothing there, that was a bald-faced lie.
Yeah, so they didn't review it. They were like, those were lost, so we're not even going to review it. Or it claimed that they reviewed it, but they never even looked at it. Which, by the way, has now become an official revelation this week, which we'll we're going to touch on here in a minute when Bannon mentions it. This week, we now officially know they didn't look at it, but we knew way back then if you were following the conspiracy. Okay.
Specifically did not look at the BlackBerry backups, and they didn't look at a fraction of the emails on Anthony Weiner's laptop. So one of the things, if I were the president, I'd do is demand the Anthony Weiner laptop and get it to the most trusted person in the military to take apart everything on it and then start using it. There's a lot that can be prosecuted. I have no doubt on that laptop. In fact, I heard that the New York police officers who saw some of it, even though they're hardened investigators, literally had to go throw up. It's bad.
And that came from a radio interview that Reince Priebus did right after he had met with some of these guys doing his opposition research. Pretty incredible. Okay, Debbie, Anthony Weiner, more old news that they hoped would go away. Yeah, it's not. We, the peasants, have a good memory. One of the most important words, remember, remember. The people who want you to forget how bitter the fruit tastes, they want you to, they want you to forget and not take another bite. Trade the Rosary Daily, Sydney's book, License to Lie, is riveting, worth the read. Yeah, I've heard a lot of great things about it. I actually haven't read it. Correction, License to Lie, License to Kill. Oh, yeah, it was License to Lie. I knew the book name. So my brain auto-corrected you. Okay, so that was like, okay, so the Weiner lab, and just so you know, Uma Aberdeen now, she did divorce Anthony Weiner, and now she's married to Alex Soros, George Soros's son. So, I mean, just
Okay.
it's just small world after all.
So a lot of those emails were important because they were related to the Benghazi situation that happened.
The Clinton Foundation is one big tangled web of nothing but badness, right?
Yeah.
So that alone, in and of itself, is just a money laundering operation.
Yeah, I just didn't want people to forget.
And there's these two Irish investigators. They're American, but they're Irish American. I can't remember. Boyle or something like that. And they did a big bunch of research. They came into Congress, testified about it, and they had dug apart the Clinton Foundation and found out. They called it a multi-trillion-dollar ecosystem of money laundering and fraud going through these nonprofit foundations, such as the Clinton Foundation, the Open Society Foundation, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. These things are all like. Which, by the way, for those of you that are religious and go to churches, a lot of those churches are also wrapped up. Like I know my church, the Mormon Church, makes large donations to the Bill and Hillary Clinton Foundation. I don't know. There's a lot of interconnectedness. So again, no bueno. So you've got that going on, right? So there's potential pay for play, bribes, Benghazi, the State Department stuff, who knows what else, all the Libya stuff. It goes on and on and on. The potential for what's there just on the financial side and the natural political corruption side. But then on top of that, then you get to the sex crimes, which really riles up people, right? Who knows what that's all about? Rumors. Very little's been released. Then, so you've got the Weiner laptop being exposed right around the same time frame. The DNC servers are hacked, right?
Yeah.
And this is where WikiLeaks gets their information. Well, the assumption was Russia hacked it and gave it to WikiLeaks or Russia hacked it, right? This is what Julian Assange was being charged with, was helping someone hack the DNC servers. This is Bill Benny. Bill Benny was a NSA, I can't remember if it was NSA analyst or whatever, but he was one of these early whistleblowers that came out and he was talking about the DNC server hack. Again, all these things are happening at the same time and they're all related. DNC servers hacked, Anthony Weiner laptop gets found. Let's drum something up on Trump to create some noise to block out these hardcore signals so nobody's paying attention to this. And we'll just use our political capital with the media to tell them, squeak, 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 look over here, don't look over here. The allegation that the DNC server was hacked is debunked by one simple fact. And here it is what Bill Benny lays out. And this is like hard and fast. You can definitively say that whoever got the information off the DNC laptop did it locally, not over the internet.
From there, he listed out the raw data from the transactions in the log, which meant the time the transmission started, the time it ended, amounts of data passed, and any other identifying IPs are buried in those packets that were passed too, if the NSA would ever give them to you. But I think this is probably one of the reasons the DNC didn't let the FBI look at it, because it would show that at the rate. See, it was taken out at the rate of 1,976 megabytes. Or it was taking out
and you make the point that it was moved too fast, right? So it couldn't have gone out over the internet. It had to have been taken directly in person from the computer, downloaded onto some sort of mobile storage.
From there, he listed out the raw data from the transactions.
Okay, so what he's saying there is that the stuff that came off the DNC server came off too fast to have been done over the internet. It wasn't hacked. Somebody plugged in a USB stick, plug and drop, file transfers very fast, pulled it out, and away it went. Most people believe that the person who did this was Seth Rich, who was later murdered in a hotel room when he was robbed, but they didn't take anything, right? And it's an unsolved murder to this point. There's a couple attorneys that have been kind of chasing down releases, the investigation into his murder, but a lot of people suspect Seth Rich is the one who did that because he somehow became aware of the corruption and decided to do something about it. I don't know that we know. My suspicion is it was Seth Rich. WikiLeaks, Julian Assange offered a reward for information to the death of Seth Rich. Why would they care? Why would they? Bye, Ron. I'm sure he'll be back. Why would they care? Just make sure I got this set here so he can come back easy. Why would they care if some random staffer got murdered? Why would WikiLeaks care? They probably cared because he's the one who provided the information. In the information that John Podesta, or that was leaked, and I don't know if this came from that leak or a later hacker leak or whatever, I don't know. Sometimes it gets a little convoluted, but this information came out right here. So this is a clip from WikiLeaks, and this is C3 posts this. Oops, sorry, share it all the way. C3 posts this. There is no evidence Russia hacked the DNC server. None. However, there is evidence someone uploaded the DNC server into info locally and leaked it to Wikipedia. There's also evidence Seth Rich was killed after Podesta emailed about making an example of a suspected leaker. So these emails did come out. This is the Podesta emails, which was a Gmail account, which did get hacked. And we confirmed this is all real. Podesta even confirmed that these were his emails. Podesta, I'm definitely for making an example of a suspected leaker, whether or not we have any real basis for it. It's right here out of his email. Agree. Happy to talk tomorrow, Davids. Call me crazy, but I think if we can survive the next month, it will be possible. Maybe even straightforward to get our areas around our arms around this once there is an actual campaign. I'm definitely for making an example of a suspected leader, whether or not we have any real basis for it. So that's what they were doing at that same time. And by the way, we've known this for close to a decade. It's like totally not a new thing. So we have that. And then we move over to this. This is Steve Bannon talking about the thumb drives that the FBI got that they didn't look at. So this is, again, part of this whole leading up thing. What are they covering up with the Russiagate scandal is these kind of handful of serious scandals going on at the DNC. The alleged Russian hack of the DNC, which was downloaded locally, not through Russia. You've got the Podesta email leaks. It's happening. You've got the Weiner laptop. So they're starting to unravel. And so that's why they go so hard on this Russiagate thing to create all that noise. And they use their media apparatchiks to drown out the real issues with the fake issues. Keep in mind, this is basically exactly what they're doing with this Epstein stuff. We are totally justified in wanting to get to the bottom of Epstein, but you're watching a similar operation. Let's pack that file with a bunch of nonsense and drip it out like the Wall Street Journal did last week, which, by the way, they've now confirmed that letter's fake or that picture's fake. All right. Look at it for 2 seconds and figure that out. So here's Steve Bannon.
Julie Kelly joins us. Julie, we're going to play. We got a clip we're going to play after the commercial break for you. So much is happening today. I mean, can you give us just a couple of the headlines of what you're tracking on these investigations, ma'am?
What time is it? I mean, it's like we're getting hourly bombshell droppings, which is great. So just following up on Tulsi Gabbard's, not just her release on Friday, but her comments over the weekend about a treasonous conspiracy and her belief that charges should be brought. Today, Senator Grassley's release of the old Hillary Clinton mid-year exam.
Okay, so it's Chuck Grassley that released a report yesterday or the day before that said that when they investigated they did the mid-year exam investigation into Hillary Clinton and the emails and stuff, they had these thumb drives and they didn't look at them. We didn't know that for certain until yesterday when Grassley released that. So when Comey got up and said, we looked and there's nothing here, total lie.
Inquiry, as they called it at the FBI, and how, of course, as we know, it was not thorough, but we have more evidence. Senator Grassley disclosing the now declassified appendix to Michael Horowitz's 2018 report investigating the mid-year examination. So lots of things happening. So we can chat after the break.
Well, I got about a minute or two. I want to talk about that one specifically. Why is because a lot of the mainstream media is either trying to dismiss this or said, we've heard this before. Like, for instance, they're saying, oh, this is the IG report from Horowitz, where actually it's not. It's kind of the meat of it that he wasn't able to disclose. So Grassley's now on board. There are other people on board. I understand from people at DNI that the whistleblowers are burning up the phone lines of people that have information. Why? We got about a minute before we go to break. Why is this what Grassley did today so important?
Because what it demonstrates, and I'm going through it, it's pretty lengthy and kind of goes back and forth, but what it proves is that the FBI had 8 thumb drives of data collected from a major breach of federal government servers. This included a trove of hacked emails from then President Barack Obama. I think it could be tied to the 2015 email hacking of the State Department. Doesn't specify in this declassified appendix. They had 8 thumb drives of emails from the president and from the State Department. And what some in the FBI were pushing, and it appeared like even early on Peter Strzok was doing this, is that they wanted to look at the source who had turned over the 8 thumb drives, look at, to the extent that they could, the data and records on those thumb drives and cross-reference with anything with the ongoing Hillary Clinton investigation. But lo and behold, I know you'll be shocked to find out, no one pursued it, the matter was dropped, and no one looked at those 8 thumb drives to see if it further implicated Hillary Clinton, because Jim Comey had already decided the case was closed and no charges would be brought.
So they didn't look at it. Oh, you're back. I just looked up. Ron.
Yeah, sorry. I'm having struggles here.
Oh, it's okay. I know Colorado doesn't have the best coverage, I'm sure. Somewhere in the hinterlands. Okay. So basically the Comey FBI had the Weiner laptop, the DNC hack, and the WikiLeaks hack of the Podesta emails that exposed a massive amount of corruption. Donald Trump
purposely did nothing.
Yeah, Donald Trump mentions this in his big speech that people say got him elected, where he goes, we know through the leak that Hillary Clinton has one policy for the public and one policy in private, because one of her speeches was leaked. It was a private speech to Wall Street bankers, right? And so it was like he kind of exposed this and ran on the fact that we're going to drain the swamp. This is the swamp he's talking about, right? It's these specific core of people that are running the world, and there's people unnamed that we don't know either, right? And then as soon as he gets into office, it's Russia, 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 Russia. And he can't hardly get a word out or do anything to go after the Clintons or any of the people that did this. Why? Because he's got very little political capital. If he goes hard, you peel off 1 or 2 Republicans and boom, you're impeached and it's done. You know what I'm saying? And so he has to play this game where he's got to keep these Republicans happy and stuff like that, because you have to realize there are some major power brokers that are playing the fence. They're not playing the fence. They're all in. This is one of the situation, one of the groups here that are all in. Now, keep in mind, Trump's trying to, once the Russiagate thing gets going, once you've got, so the Russiagate thing gets going, and now you've got Robert Mueller appointed, and he's a special counsel, and he's got prosecutorial capability. They're deposing everybody around you. And this is going on. You've got to maintain 51 votes in the Senate to not impeach, right? You've got to make sure, actually I think you need 60 or whatever. Point is, you don't have a huge margin here. So this is John McCain and Lindsey Graham. They go over to Ukraine and then they come back and they have a little message for Americans.
We're going to go back and tell our colleagues what Russia's up to in the Baltics, what they're doing in the Ukraine. We're going to get briefed about Georgia. We hope to make 2017 a year of offense. We believe that Putin has hacked into our elections in America, that he's trying to undermine democracy all over the world, and it's time for new sanctions to hit him hard as an individual, his energy sector, his banking sector. It is time to push back against Putin, but be a better friend to our allies over here, including...
I'm just looking at McCain's little micro expression smiles like, yeah, we're going after Russia.
Georgia.
I'm just looking at his hair.
Very important trip. We just left Ukraine, where we've seen firsthand what happens when Russia crosses over into a country's independence, and we saw it in our own election with the attempt to influence our election.
We will be working for much tougher sanctions against Russia. They attacked the United States of America. The hacking was an attack, and we should be treated as such. And we think their financial institutions and other aspects of the Russian economy should be addressed. And we will strongly urge our colleagues to enact more meaningful and stronger sanctions against Russia because of their attack on the United States of America.
Okay, so they're now referencing, right? You got Democrat Amy Klobuchar, these two Republicans, clearly both from the Rhino Party, all of them. They're all in the Uniparty. But anyways, they're clearly saying Russia attacked our election. This is so they're into it. I do not believe that these guys didn't know it was a scam. I don't believe that at all. I believe they were in on it. Yeah. However, to simply play it straight, I don't know that we know that they knew. I don't believe they knew that it wasn't fake. But remember, John McCain walked the dossier into the FBI. Hey, FBI, please look at this. He may have been given it to him thinking it was coming from a blizzard. I'm just casting a cloak of charity. It doesn't matter. Yeah. He's not here anymore. But Trump
I'm not buying your cloak of charity.
I don't believe it. I'm just saying, put it aside for a minute. Trump's looking at these guys. If they really believe it, they'll vote to impeach. If they know it's a scam and they're corrupt, they'll vote to impeach. So he's got to somehow not do too much that these guys will lose their base if they vote to impeach. If Trump comes, you know what I mean? Trump is walking a very narrow line in his first term. Lindsey Graham and John McCain are old bulls in the Republican Party. These guys have massive political action committees. They can fund candidates all over the country that will be allied with them. That's one of the reasons why Donald Trump keeps Lindsey Graham around. Once John McCain died, because if you notice this, Lindsey Graham's basically a puppet here. He's like got his hand up their butts and he's making them talk. Because this, when you hear Amy Klobuchar and Lindsey Graham talk, you're basically hearing John McCain. You know what I mean? Doesn't it look like that? Like he's kind of marionetting him from behind.
Yeah.
So Lindsey Graham, in my opinion, Trump has him under his thumb. That's my opinion. I don't think a deal was cut. I don't know. I want to say, but I think Trump now, once John McCain died, Lindsey Graham is under Trump's thumb. Trump uses Lindsey Graham because I think he's got the biggest war chest of any senator. You're not going to get rid of Lindsey Graham without a fight. So it's better to keep him on board, keep him close. It's keep your enemies close kind of thing. So there's a strategery to dealing with Lindsey Graham. If there was a possibility that Lindsey Graham could be unelected in South Carolina, I'm all for it. I don't like Lindsey Graham. I don't have any love for him anymore. But I also believe that Trump thinks that he's got him under his thumb. That's absolutely what I believe. Lindsey Graham votes almost completely with Donald Trump's agenda. I don't think he's split a vote, or I don't think he's voted against Trump on anything. So, do what he's going to do. Lindsey Graham plays he plays the fence, and I think Lindsey Graham is politically controlled by Trump. Okay, the chat. Got a couple things here. So Bye-Bye says, none of them have done anything but talk about it. All these channels telling us what's up, but never gets organized. She also says, I'd hang both those losers. Yeah, but no people were harmed in the rhetorical statement there. Who is this Jewish woman? Okay, it's Amy Klobuchar. The girl who combs her hair with a fork. Debbie B, I agree they knew. I think they did know. John McCain's wife stated that they knew about Epstein. That was before 2016. They knew full well all the schemes generated from D.C. to keep people bleeding off instead of ending the Fed bank. South Carolina elections are probably rigged. Yes, Linwood thinks South Carolina elections are rigged.
I think they're all rigged.
Yeah. The whole looking at all of this stuff every day, we can get completely lost in it. You can get really fed up and angry and want justice. Stop. We're just looking. This is entertainment purposes only at this point. I mean, I want to see it change, but at the end of the day, we are the solution. That's why we've got to do what we've got to do to be secure in our persons, papers, and things. We've got to do what we can to be secure in our free speech, which means find your tribe and the people that will listen to you and validate you and allow you to have some core of support. They can't take all of us. They might pick off one of us, but if there's enough of us standing together, that's kind of what happened after January 6th, and they blew 2 million people off of social media and they got rid of Parler. Yeah, you can get rid of us for a moment, but if there's enough of us doing this, we'll respawn everywhere. So, remember that. And of course, more than anything, secure your assets and stuff. Go check out 1776 Live and how we do that there. Okay. So James Comey, right? His daughter, she was in charge of the Epstein prosecution. He killed himself. She was then in charge of the Ghislaine Maxwell prosecution. She only was charged with trafficking people to Epstein. She is not in prison for trafficking to no one. You don't have to traffic to 100 people to be called a trafficker. You only have to traffic to one person. And they proved in the court that she trafficked to Jeffrey Epstein. He was her client. Now, do I believe there's probably other people? But yes, of course I believe that. Okay. They put Al Capone in prison for life, basically, on tax evasion. Was he also a murderer? Sure. But they couldn't prove it at that time directly with all the kind of evidentiary standard, but they had him on tax fraud. It's kind of what they did with Ghislaine. We got her on this, we can put her away, and if we just have her trafficking to the dead guy, then we don't have to expose anything else. Keep in mind, this entire prosecution started under Trump, was finished under Biden, and Maureen Comey, who was with the Epstein trial, and then the Ghislaine trial, then moved on to the Diddy trial, where she lost the serious charges, and Diddy's going to end up spending less time in prison than I was sentenced to. Okay. So Maureen Comey finally got fired. She finally got fired from the DOJ. Diddy trial's over. Supreme Court says you can fire people as a reduction in force effort. And she gets a letter saying, pack your bags. So James Comey yesterday puts out this impassioned video calling for other FBI officials and people inside of the apparatus to continue to support the rule of law. Keep in mind who's saying this.
What does that mean?
This is the guy who found some shells on a beach saying 8647, which is kill Donald Trump, essentially. And then there has been somebody arrested who made threats against Donald Trump, quoting James Comey. So somebody who quoted what he said has now been arrested and will probably spend 5 to 10 years in prison. But James Comey, the one who originally did it, it's like, oh, I didn't even know what 86 meant. I thought it just meant get rid of the lettuce in a restaurant. Retard. Okay, so this is James Comey now after the firing of his daughter. Listen to how personal he makes this. Listen to how impassioned he is. And let's talk about it.
The reservoir is in grave danger right now. Trump and the hacks who lead the Department of Justice are hammering at the dam day after day, trying to turn it into just another gold leaf-covered Trump subsidiary. Our best hope is that good people will stay and do what Maureen asked. Have the courage to do the right thing always.
Do what Maureen asked?
You may get fired for acting that way, but there's honor in it, and nothing but disgrace for those who don't stand up. There are going to be hard weeks in the Trump era, and this was one for my family. But there are plenty of good people still in the department committed to doing things the right way, committed to the rule of law. For them, because of them, keep the faith.
Okay. So when James Comey got fired, what happened was they had their little Russiagate meeting, right? And he goes, it's the first meeting with the president where you've got all the different cabinet people and James Comey, Mr. President, can I talk to you privately after the meeting? Okay. So everybody leaves and James Comey's there. What can I help you with, Mr. Comey? James Comey, we have a open investigation into these allegations of Russia, and here's what we got. And, if you play ball, we can make this go away. And you know what Trump says? Am I getting shook down? I didn't do anything wrong. You're fired. All hell breaks loose. Whoa, you fired the guy. These guys are supposed to have a 10-year term, all this stuff. All hell breaks loose. And that's kind of, you saw the media frenzy. Donald Trump did real estate in New York. And one of the stories about Donald Trump is back, the concrete business in New York was 100% controlled by the mob. You had to pay the mob to get the concrete. It's just one of those one of those things. Well, Donald Trump refused to do business with the mob. There's a mobster that was put in prison for a long time from, the Five Families or whatever. And he was interviewed. He's out now and he was interviewed. What about Donald Trump? Couldn't corrupt Donald Trump. Sent guys to him all the time, couldn't get him. And he was surrounded by former FBI guys. Trump has his own intel service security firm, right? He's like, you didn't go mess with those guys. You went and messed with Trump, you were messing with the FBI. Trump was a known informer to the FBI on the mob in the 90s against Giuliani. Trump was part of taking down the Fine Families by being like, oh, you want to know who's really calling the shots? The guy who came in my office to extort me with a suit on. This guy, right? That's why Trump and Giuliani have been so close, is Trump was part of Giuliani's pipeline for leads, okay? So he's like, you couldn't corrupt Trump in New York. So Trump built one of his buildings and wouldn't pay the mob for the concrete. So he had concrete coming from like New Jersey and he had it trucked all the way into New York City because he refused to pay the mob in New York City, right? It was cheaper to pay it to come than to pay the bribe. So when Comey comes in and does this, immediately Trump and he said it in one of the helicopter reports. He goes, it was a shakedown. He was trying to shake me down. I know what a shakedown is. I'm not having that from the FBI director. So he fired him. Okay. So that's how that all went down. So Maureen Comey was fired. Maureen Comey was on the FBI or the Ghislaine Maxwell investigation. Now, this is what Pam Bondi posted this morning. I had to check the date. She posted this morning. Statement from Todd Blanche. And she posted this on her account. The Department of Justice does not shy away from uncomfortable truths, nor from the responsibility to pursue justice wherever the facts may lead. The joint statement by the DOJ and FBI of July 6th, this is the statement where they said there's nothing on the Epstein thing to look into, remains as accurate today as it was when it was written. Namely, that in the recent thorough review of the files maintained by the FBI, these are the files that have been maintained by this Comey, and then you get to Christopher Wray, who we all believe was corrupt and covering everything up left and right, and don't even get me started, okay? All of this. So they've maintained these files. It says files maintained by the FBI in the Epstein case. No evidence was uncovered that could predicate an investigation against uncharged third parties. A little bit of grace here. They pick up a file that's been touched by the Comeys, touched by Christopher Wray, and who knows else. Anything that was salacious and could have resulted in charges, they just shredder. Okay? Shredder. And who knows what they put in there. So in the file, which is what they need to use to predicate further investigations, indictments, and whatever, there's nothing specific. One of the things that Pam Bondi says is he downloaded a bunch of child pornography off the internet. Okay, so when we hear about all these files and thousands of images, it was download stuff. Now that's, again, is that planted in there? Did Epstein actually download it? But from what they have said is he didn't generate it. Okay, there's not images in there of people that he was connected to. These are like just dark web stuff that they actually arrest people every day, which, by the way, the government, I know this for a fact, because when I was in prison, there was a lot of sex offenders, and in the federal level, they're not touchers, they're usually clickers. These are your child pornographers and stuff like that. They would go to certain websites to look at child pornography, and those websites were being hosted by the government. So they were tracked. That's how they, you go there and boop, they got you.
Like trapdoors.
For looking at the same images over and over and over again. Now, that doesn't mean doesn't mean there's not other variations to that, but that is one of the very consistent things. Okay. So is it possible that they just took all that, dumped it on there, and it's like, yeah, the people in these videos have like long been prosecuted, sought after, whatever, but these are not the elites you're looking for. Okay. So that's what I'm saying here. So she says, President Trump has told us to release all credible evidence. If Ghislaine Maxwell has information about anyone who's committed crimes against victims, the FBI and the DOJ will hear what she has to say. Jessica Watkins, a January 6er, was in the exact communal dormitory in prison with Ghislaine Maxwell. And Ghislaine Maxwell liked to come talk to her because they were the only two, quote, celebrities that were in that unit. So Ghislaine apparently is the model prisoner, right? So she told Jessica Watkins, and this was featured in, Jessica put this on her Twitter feed or X feed, which was then picked up by the Daily Mail. I'm not going to pull up the article, but it's all there. She basically said, Ghislaine Maxwell's like, I have nothing on Trump, but why are people talking about Epstein and Trump and not Epstein and Clinton? Keep in mind, she probably doesn't have a lot of love in her heart for them because they've let her rot in prison. Okay. So yeah. She's like, let's hear what she has to say. Then she goes, therefore, at the direction of Attorney General Bondi, I have communicated with counsel for Mrs. Maxwell to determine whether she would be willing to speak with prosecutors from the department. I anticipate meeting with Ms. Maxwell in the coming days. Up until now, Maureen Comey, who could have talked to her, who could have made a deal, who could have done a deposition, could have found something out. Until now, no administration on behalf of the department had inquired about her willingness to meet with the government. That changes now. Okay. Yes, they've had, I don't want to hear it, right? Oh, they've had 6 months in office. What have they done? This isn't what you do on day one. Okay. You've got so many things you have to do to stop the bleeding, the leaking, the corruption. You've got to get some people fired. You got to move some positions around. Right now, they're to a spot where they've released all this, Russiagate stuff showing the actual collusion. And now there's obviously a lot of steam on this Epstein thing. Just put yourself in their shoes. They know about things internally that we are not privy to and don't need to be privy to. They're moving people around, making things happen. A lot of J6ers are like, J6 first. People who are Q folks are like, Epstein's got to go down. Where's the client list? You've got other people that are like, you got to stop the financial corruption. Why hasn't Hunter, you know what I mean? The auto pen. You've got so many things going on, and they're trying to manage all of it while at the same time fire everybody that's supposed to be investigating this stuff. Because it's not like the FBI is full of a bunch of MAGA people. It's full of a bunch of these uniparty, corrupt, deep state. They don't even, when the FBI came to return my property to my house, there was 2 agents that came. The one who was in my trial that investigated me, blah, 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 told my wife, your husband's such a great guy. I can't believe, it's so bad that it happened. But, I have to do something about, all the January 6th. And then the other guy goes, yeah, but your husband did try to overthrow the results of the election. This is the FBI agent replacing the guy that had to transfer, was told by the FBI, you need to get out of here because you're a J6 investigator. So he transferred from here to New Jersey, right, to kind of run from this office. And the guy replacing him told my wife point blank after a pardon, but your husband did try to overthrow the government.
No bias.
Hey, Pam, how haven't you fired him yet, Pam? I don't even care about Epstein. Fire him, Pam. Don't be so self-centered about this. There's a lot of issues, and everybody's issues are the most important. Okay. Live your life. Let them do their job. If they don't hold anybody accountable, I'll jump in with you. I don't know what the time frame is. To me, it's by the end of the year, right? I have low expectations, but it takes some time to do it right. We have a sign in our office. We offer 3 kinds of services. You can pick only 2. We have 3 types of services: good, cheap, and fast. You can pick only 2. Good and cheap, but it won't be fast. Fast and good won't be cheap, or cheap and fast won't be good. So if you want a real quick investigation, and by the way, Congress holds the purse strings to the money, you can get cheap and fast, but it won't be good. They'll all get acquitted. This is like a Diddy situation, right? You can good, it won't be cheap. Good and cheap won't be fast. Take your choice. I would rather it be fast and good. I would rather it be fast and good and it won't be cheap, but the reality is it's probably going to be good and cheap, but it won't be fast. That's just the reality of it. Because anybody who has any potential exposure in Congress, they're going to try to do everything they can obstruct, up to and including things like Tom Cotton putting in a motion to limit the access and the capability and the authority of the Director of National Intelligence, which would be Tulsi Gabbard. She releases this information, and here comes our Republican senator from Arkansas, Mr. Walmart senator himself, and he's like, hey, we've got to limit Tulsi Gabbard's authority to release this kind of information. What are you talking about? She's exposing a running coup. And you're like, oh, she can't be doing that. She can't have the authority to look at those files. We had a Senate intelligence report, and we confirmed the coup. We confirmed that it was a coup. What are you talking about, man? Right? So they've got to deal with that. Okay. They're not going to get extra money. They're not going to get extra funding. They're going to get blocked at every turn. So they're going to have to do this good. And it's probably going to have to be cheap, which means it's not going to be fast. But I am excited that at least they're doing something. I'm excited to see what Ghislaine Maxwell has to say. My expectations are low. I don't think she's going to say much. Because
never know.
She doesn't want that to happen. Of course, she is in prison. Okay. So just FYI, I don't know that there's going to be a lot there. But at least
probably not. And you never know.
Yeah, we never know. But I do believe that the people that are going to go talk to him would like to find something. They dangled the red meat. We want to get it. But we do have to be completely cognizant of the fact that they probably don't have as much information to work off of as what Q and us online conspiracists have alleged they have. Maybe they did at one point, but again, it could all be fake. And it could be one of those things too, like, hey, everybody look at Epstein. Epstein. Why are we talking about Epstein and not the Clinton and the Weiner laptop? Do you see what I'm saying? Even the Epstein debacle could be a distraction from the laptop. When you go actually dig into what we do know about Epstein, it's not this worldwide human trafficking. It's just not. It's him picking up girls, having them come give massages, paying for them to go to school, paying for art school. They were grooming these girls. It wasn't like what we know is limited. Okay. We don't know. I'm not saying that there doesn't need to be accountability, justice, et cetera, but it could all be a ruse from look over here where there's really some other stuff going on.
Yeah.
Okay. So Mike Johnson was asked yesterday about the possibility of interviewing Barack Obama.
What Tulsi Gabbard has done, the DNI chief, in essence, declassifying hundreds of documents that seem to suggest that manufactured intelligence was at play here with the Obama administration regarding this Russian collusion hoax. I've heard Stephen Miller call it a seditious conspiracy. I've heard Tulsi Gabbard call it a treasonous conspiracy. You're a constitutional guy. What do you see in this exactly? How do you term it?
Well, I don't know how to summarize it by way of description in a snappy phrase, but I will tell you it is deeply problematic. And before I became Speaker of the House, I served on the House Judiciary Committee, which had jurisdiction over a lot of this. And we knew what was happening. We knew intuitively, and we were gathering the evidence as we were investigating all of this ourselves. We knew the Russia collusion thing was a hoax. They used it as a basis to attack the president mercilessly. I served on his impeachment defense teams twice. That would be unheard of in history, that a president would be impeached twice on such spurless claims. But in those processes, as we were preparing for those defenses, as we were investigating with our oversight responsibility and judiciary, we recognized that the people who are being called out now were involved in a scheme. We knew that it was a shameless, false set of accusations. And yet they perpetuated the lie on the American people, and they looked right into the camera and just lied clearly. And they knew what they were up to the whole time. So there must be accountability for that, because what it does ultimately, the greatest threat of all this is not just what they've done to President Trump as an individual, it's what they're doing to the institutions, even broader than that. They have diminished the people's faith in our system of justice itself, in the institution of the Department of Justice, in the institution of the FBI. And those are critical functions that are played in a constitutional republic. And so we're in the process of restoring trust and rebuilding the people's belief in our system of justice itself. And it's an extraordinary challenge that was brought about because people were involved in a sinister plot. And so there must be accountability.
You say there must be accountability. The DOJ will work on the criminal aspect of this. What's the role of the House here specifically? I mean, people want to see subpoenas. They want to see depositions. They want to see whether it be Brennan, Clapper, potentially the former president of the United States. Are you willing to go down that route? Because a lot of people want to see some of these folks questioned under oath.
Of course. Look, I think we have a responsibility to follow the truth where it leads and to do it in an unbiased fashion, to do effectively the opposite of what that other team did. They're engaged in a partisan political plot to take down their foe and the other party. We need to be about the rule of law and bringing order to the chaos and searching out the truth, because the American people are owed those answers. So we have some very bright, very capable, very strong leaders at Judiciary and Oversight, Chairman Jim Jordan, Chairman Jamie Comer, and the other committees that would be involved. And I do expect that whether there's a special counsel appointed, which some are suggesting, and or in conjunction with the House investigations, that we will get the answers, and there will be accountability to the extent that we're able to do that, referring people to the DOJ for prosecution and any other measure that is appropriate as we begin to uncover more of the facts.
Does it get tricky at all with the former president, President Obama, looking at what his role in this is and bringing him in for some sort of deposition, potential subpoena?
Well, listen, we have no concern about that. If it's uncomfortable for him, he shouldn't have been involved in overseeing this, which is what it appears to us has happened. There's a lot of allegations on the table. Our job is to go and follow each of those trails and to find out the truth. So those are very serious allegations with very serious implications, but we're going to have very serious people working on it, and we will get the answers.
Here's my opinion. The only way Barack Obama himself faces direct accountability is that he's going to have to be impeached. They broke the seal on impeaching former presidents when they did an impeachment for Donald Trump over the January 6th debacle. Okay. So they would have to impeach Barack Obama. And once they do that, that essentially would strip any claim of presidential immunity for that specific allegation of treason, sedition, whatever they're going to make it up to be. And then the DOJ could come in and do something about it if they do it all. And that's for Barack Obama. Everyone else is going to have to be charged by the DOJ. So we sit and wait. What are you going to do about it, Ron? I'm just going to keep talking about it every morning.
Yeah, I don't know.
Get it into the zeitgeist. I told you about my friend who I have lunch with every Sunday. No idea. Didn't know about the Epstein thing with Trump and the Wall Street Journal. Didn't know about Tulsi Gabbard's release of information about treason and sedition. Had some family come in yesterday. They came and I was like, did you guys hear what happened this weekend? They had no idea. It's not penetrated enough. If today they came and started busting down doors and they heard about it, they would think Trump was all about retribution, going after his political enemies. This has to marinate now. There has to be in the zeitgeist, the public opinion. This is why we do this show.
I think that's why it's time for us to get much larger audience. I think it'd be great to get a guest appearance on something like Joe Rogan, where you could just get this out. And I think you've done a great job of curating this and building a timeline with all the detail that would be just so interesting for so many people. I think this would just be great to get out there to the American people. And I think a platform like Joe Rogan would be totally appropriate.
So listeners should email people.
Yeah. Make it happen, people.
You know who I'd like to do show again is
what I'd like to have happen is I'd like to find out that one of our listeners is like Joe Rogan's cousin or something.
Yeah. I would love to do guest appearances, guys. I kind of operate on this I don't solicit mentality. I don't like to go out, Joe, can I be on your show? Joe reaches out to me. So listeners, reach out to your other favorite podcasters. I know there's a lot of them out there. Tell them that I'm willing to collaborate. Come on, do the show. I talk fast. We could probably make a good run of it. Okay. And so, yeah, I'm absolutely willing to do that. But this information has to get out in the zeitgeist. And I don't claim to have some total broke. I'm not a journalist. I'm not out there doing the deep research. I'm just trying to give you the peasant's perspective.
Sure. But where else can we go to get the information that we're presenting daily?
Yeah, you have to dig. You can follow everything Julie Kelly says. Or there's a whole bunch of places you can get it. Tracy Beans has done a lot of deep dive.
Right, but you got to put the timeline together yourself.
Yeah, you gotta put the timeline together yourself. This is a 10-year long conspiracy, and when you reach back into it, remember, if you go back into season 1, which is not published, you have to go into the Wayback Machine to find it. But and someday we're going to get to it. It's just we've got so many things going on, guys. But if you go look, there was an old episode. It all started in Libya Part 1, where I go over how Clinton and how they did the whole Libya overthrow and then the Benghazi thing. This leads into a State Department scandal of child stuff. And this leads into it's like, this is a running thing. This has been going on forever. It's the same people. Remember the names, right? It's the same freaking people that just move from one thing to the next, and they're covering up their corruption as they go, and they're projecting out this lie, and they're projecting onto their political enemies the very things they're doing. You have to be able to kind of see it in this big, broad overview and not get lost in the weeds of, well, on the 14th, this happened. And, it's like,
what I'm saying though is even though the information is out there, it is just too much of a task, too much of an ask for the American public to go piece all this 10 years worth of information together. It's just too much. And so, since you and we've already done it, and we have it kind of curated, it's like a no-brainer. We just have to get out there. We have to be able to share this so that people can understand it, because they're not going to piece it together themselves, even though the information is all there.
Yeah, it is. And when you see it, you can't really unsee it. Like, if you know who James Comey is and what he's involved in, he's like, this was a hard week for my family. Dude, your daughter is at the center of everything that you, the Republicans and the Democrats, are barking about. Where were you? Why didn't your daughter release the Epstein information? Why didn't your daughter tell the world? Comey, that's your daughter. If Trump's in the files, why didn't your daughter release it 7 years ago when Epstein was arrested or whatever it was, right?
Maybe they have a relationship like Nancy Pelosi and her husband. They just don't talk.
Yeah, maybe. All right. Yeah, it is aggravating, but we're peasants. We just have to take care of what we have to take care of. I'm not going to play this video, but General Flynn says he believes Mike Pence was absolutely involved in the Russiagate setup. He also predicts that Tulsi is going to drop additional declassified information this week that's going to be mind-blowing. Think waves. They're going to have these waves of disclosure so it stays in the news cycle because it needs to penetrate. But what happens is each wave crashes. The people who weren't touched by the first wave, think of it, wave comes in, it goes further inland. This was the first wave. We're standing on the beach. Yes, we got hit with it. And then the people that are back further, the wave's going to come. By the time that it's in the zeitgeist generally, we're going to be like completely drowned in information. And we're going to be like, why has nobody been held accountable? Right? And that's what's going to happen here. But as we get these waves that come out, one of the things we're going to find is Mike Pence was totally involved with this the whole time. He knew the whole thing. Remember, Mike Pence and Paul Ryan, right before the Access Hollywood tape came out, they were tipped off, and they were hoping and encouraging Donald Trump to drop from the campaign, and they were going to run a Mike Pence and Paul Ryan ticket. And Trump didn't drop. In fact, he had a great debate performance where he apologized, and then he says, if you had control of the law system, he goes, it'd be bad. Yeah, you'd be in jail. Okay. And he had a great performance and ended up rising in the polls and winning the election. It was a total shock to them. They couldn't conceive how you could make it through a scandal like that. Trump brought the people that Bill Clinton allegedly raped, brought them in the front row and said, Hillary, you talking about me and having a little locker room talk? There's the women say that your husband raped them. And by the way, you're not any better the way you mistreated those women. So don't you talk about me how you treat women. You don't even treat women well. Okay. Yes. All a big cluster. This is really hilarious. Okay. We're moving on from this now. Now we're just going to listen to Hunter Biden act like a complete idiot. He does some interview here where he's talking about the illegal migrants. Dad, there's a couple F words. Go ahead and hit mute. Everyone else, you're probably immune to it because you watch normal TV. Okay. But there's a couple F words in here. This is Hunter Biden ranting about the immigration and Donald Trump being such a dictator. Listen to this.
For someone, be like all these Democrats say, you have to talk about and realize that people are really upset about illegal immigration. Fuck you. How do you think your hotel room gets cleaned? How do you think you have food on your fucking table? Who do you think washes your dishes? Who do you think does your fucking garden?
Who picks your cotton? Does that not sound like an old Southern Democrat? You can't get rid of slavery. Who would tend to the fields? It's like,
yeah, that's exactly what it sounded like.
Holy cow. How about you, Hunter Biden? How about you? I know the art thing's gone a little south since your dad wasn't in office anymore and you lost a bunch of art in the LA fires, right? But maybe you could go, I don't know, make a bed. I've seen your laptop. You never make your bed. I've seen it. Okay.
Think is here by the fucking sheer fucking just grit and will that they figured out a way to get here because they thought that they could give themselves and their family a better chance. And he's somehow convinced all of us that these people are the fucking criminals. For someone, am I going to be like all these Democrats say?
Yeah. So then I'm going to show the other video.
Not a good look.
That's kind of a real piece of work, man. I spent a night when his laptop got released on G News before G News got banned. And I spent a night going through it. Oh my gosh. Wow. Okay. So here is him talking about Trump and Bukele. He is proposing that if he got elected president, he would have Bukele send all the criminals back.
Because I'll tell you what, if I became president in 2 years from now, or 4 years from now, or 3 years from now, I would pick up the phone and call the fucking president of El Salvador and say, you either fucking send them back or I'm going to fucking invade. It's a fucking crime what they're doing. He's a fucking dictator thug.
Bukele or Trump?
Both.
I'm telling you, man, these guys are just, if I run for president, are you seriously considering this? Seriously considering this? Like, I'd have them send all of the illegal immigrants back because nobody has cleaned my hotel for weeks.
Nobody's done my dishes.
Who's doing the dishes? Who's going to pick the almonds? Oh my goodness. This is just funny. I don't know what this guy's thinking. Oh, let's see here.
We're going to invade and bring our slaves back.
Play the Rosary Daily. Blaine is in the news this morning. DOJ announcement. Yep, I read that announcement. Pray the Rosary says SGAnon. I have been suggested about SGAnon. Pray the Rosary Daily. Just lead with, he is a J6er and has stories. When I was in prison. One thing about the entertainment from the government, it's hilarious. Yeah, they do a good job. It's like watching. I've always thought politics was like WWE. You know, it WrestleMania. Telegram had the most of the videos. He would be getting arrested just for what I had seen on video. Yeah. Sad thing is 6 years Americans forgot, and Hunter gets elected. It'd be crazy. All right. Let's move on from Hunter Biden. Scott Bessent had a couple hits today on the news, and rather than watch the videos, I just want to I want to read what he posted. Today on a CNBC interview, I called for a review of the Federal Reserve. It is my belief. I should probably share this with you guys so you can read along with me, because I know some of you guys do that. Today in a CNBC interview, I called for a review of the Federal Reserve. It is my belief that the central bank should conduct an exhaustive internal review of its non-monetary policy operations. Significant mission creep and institutional growth have taken the Fed into areas that potentially jeopardize the independence of its core monetary policy mission. As I said many times, the Fed's conduct of monetary policy is a jewel box that should be walled off to preserve its independence. This independence is the cornerstone of continued U.S. economic growth and stability. However, this autonomy is threatened by persistent mandate creep into areas beyond its core mission, invoking justifiable criticism but unnecessarily cast the cloud over the Fed's valuable independence on monetary policy. While I have no knowledge or opinion on the legal basis for the massive building renovations being undertaken on Constitution Avenue, a review of the decision to undertake such a project by an institution reporting operating losses of more than $100 billion per year should be conducted. The Fed does regular review of its monetary policy framework. I would urge Fed leadership to similarly undertake, publish, and implement a comprehensive institutional review across its entire mission to buttress its credibility. It will go a long ways towards strengthening the Fed's credibility with the American people on its core mission of guiding our nation's monetary policy. They're gonna audit the Fed, folks. That's what it looks like. And Jerome Powell, has been now referred officially to the Department of Justice with a criminal referral for lying under oath and committing perjury. It's a pretty big deal. It's actually a really big deal.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
so
it might not be good what they find, and it might impact our economy even. It scares me a little bit.
Over at 1776, I talk exhaustively about money and the fiat system and currency and all that exhaustively. It's my opinion that all of the problems we face today as a civilization, as Americans, as fellow people in the country that we call America, all of our main problems that are policy-based stem from the result of the loss of gold and silver being our money, being our currency, right? You've got a couple things that happened. The creation of the Federal Reserve started to centralize banking. Instead of having regional banks and local banks that actually held deposits and things like that, you started to have the Federal Reserve, where the government made that its bank, essentially. They're the ones who issued the currency. And then in 1933, you have the bankruptcy of the United States, where Franklin Roosevelt made it against the law to possess gold and silver, right? You had to turn your gold and silver in, and in return for that, they gave you notes that were IOUs, redeemable later in gold and silver at the Fed. So people gave their gold and silver and got dollars in return. And it was like, okay, this is going to spend like gold and silver. The government can collect whatever. So that worked. And then you fast forward 50 years, and all those people who gave all their gold and silver, and the value was stabilized because it was pegged $35 per ounce. All of a sudden, Nixon flies over to Saudi Arabia after we've been in the Vietnam War, and France is like, hold on, we were just there, and it's really expensive, and I don't think your books make sense. So they actually sent planes over to the United States to collect their gold, to turn in their dollars that they were holding as a reserve since the Bretton Woods agreements post-World War II, when the British pound was no longer the worldwide reserve currency, right? And they said, hey, we want our gold because we're not confident that you're not manipulating the money supply based on what we know you're doing in Vietnam, because we know how expensive it is because we were just there. And Nixon jumped on an airplane, I think it was on Thursday or Friday, flew to Saudi Arabia and said, don't accept anything for payment for oil, which is energy, that's not dollars. And to do that, he secured an agreement that we would defend Saudi Arabia militarily as long as they made the petrodollar, that the dollar was the standard. The only way to buy oil was with a dollar bill. France got word of this. They're like, oh, wait, so the gold can't be spent? That's right, because they won't take it on exchange for any other currency. So they went, oh, let's turn the planes around. And they went back to France. And we then came off the gold standard and went on to the petrodollar, which is basically just nothing. It's a bunch of oil in the ground. Who knows how much money we have, because you have no idea how much resource it's just like, okay. At that time, that was in 1972. In 1938, you have the bankruptcy in 1933. In 1938, you had another thing that happened. The United States, based on a gold and silver currency, was set up under a common law system. Okay. In 1938, because there was no more money, the only way that value exchanged hands was through these negotiable instruments called treasury notes, right? And so those Federal Reserve notes, those notes are not tied to the gold itself. Like there's a thing there. And so there was a Supreme Court case called Erie versus Tompkins. It's a long story, but essentially someone got hit by a board hanging off a railroad. He jurisdiction shopped, trying to find where the common law was best for him. And it worked its way through the appeals court. And eventually the Supreme Court made a determination that, and one of the things judges had been doing since a case back in the 1800s called Swift versus Tyson, is they had created a federal general common law. There is no federal general common law. Judges would literally pull it out of their butt, right? They'd say, the federal general common law says this. There's no federal general common law. It's just court precedent that they were setting as they went. So in Erie versus Tompkins, they overturned Swift versus Tyson. And in it, they say that it was a bad case and that every case that had ever used it as precedent was essentially automatically overturned because it was unconstitutional on its face. And in it, they say there is no federal general common law. So at that point, what kind of law system do the federal courts operate under? They operated under admiralty law, which they then rebranded as statutory law, which gathered up all the court precedent and all the legislation and just kind of bundled it together into what we call statutory, where they converted common law stuff into commercial law stuff. In admiralty, it's all about the contract. This is merchant goods being transported across oceans, negotiable instruments. You don't take the gold and silver, you use script. That's where all that comes from. Common law, I punch you in the face, I got to pay restitution. You and I didn't have a contract saying I wouldn't punch you in the face, right? You have to make an allegation. There's a whole different burden. It's common law. Two different things, right? The contract and just civilization and working together and the common law, right? When they got rid of the common law, now when I punch you in the face, they've got to convert it to a commercial thing, because that's the only way that the federal courts have jurisdiction, is through commerce. This is the Commerce Clause in the Constitution, right? They had erred in their application of federal general common law. Common law should have been left to the states, not to the federal government. So that's what the Supreme Court corrected. From 1938 forward, the court started to shift both at the federal, state, and local level to be statutory courts. How does this affect us? Prior to this, when you got brought up on charges, you came up to a judge, and when you did your arraignment, he said, are you guilty or are you innocent? And if you said, I'm innocent, then you're presumed you are innocent until proven guilty. You go home, you keep your gun right. You post a bond saying you'll come back, but you go home, you keep your gun right. You keep your right to vote. You can right to travel, all these things because you're innocent until they prove your guilt. After this switch to commercial works differently. You're presumed in breach of contract. You're guilty until you prove you didn't breach the contract, till you prove your innocence. So in the 1960s, and you can Google this, you can look it up for yourself. In the 1960s, courts slowly started to incorporate guilty, not guilty. In legalese, may or may not are the same thing. May or may not are the same thing. So when the judge says, are you guilty or are you not guilty? He's asking, are you guilty or are you guilty? And if you go, well, I'm guilty, but I'm not, so I'm going to try to prove my innocence. Okay, well, I'll give you the presumption of innocence. I'll let you go home, post a bond, but no guns, no travel, give me your passport. That's not innocent. That means I could go around making claims and allegations. Judges could strip me of my rights, and I don't get my rights back until I prove my innocence.
Right.
They've already
alleged guilt.
Yeah. Think about it. The entire judicial system, everything you were taught, you're innocent until proven guilty in America. No, that's not the case since 1960s. In my father's lifetime, the judicial system got flipped on its head. The other thing that happened with the money along with this, if the government wanted to do something, what they did was they issued bonds. We're going to go to war, so generate 100,000 bonds. And then grandma would go down to the post office with her silver coins and her gold, and she would buy a war bond. She would charge the bond. She would give the money to the government to go discharge the bond. And the government, of course, would make an interest payment and then eventually pay it back. And that would be the complete discharge. We charged the government. Legislature passed the bill, and then the Americans came and paid the bill by putting the money in. After there became no more gold and silver, along with all of this, that flipped over, and now the government gives the charge, and we have to discharge. They create the money, and then we have to pay the bill. It flipped around. It used to be we had the money, gave it to them, and then they paid the bill. Now they flipped it around. A complete 180 of our financial system and our judicial system, all tied to the gold and silver. This
I
is
wonder
not
if we could flip that back.
Huh?
I
don't
wonder
think
if we
you
could
can.
flip that back somehow.
I don't know how you do it.
I don't
Especially
either.
in a digital era. I don't know how you do it. I haven't had anybody offer a cogent argument of how you go back to that. The best thing we can do, and my hope, is that we can reform the system as it is so it's tolerable. And frankly, in my mind, and this is why I'm so involved with the 1776 community, exit. I want to be Amish with a cell phone. You got to exit the situation. You got to exit the situation. Okay. You got to change some things. I'm not a sovereign citizen. I hate that stuff. I'm not a patriot warfare guy. I'm what works. Look, you can live in private. The Amish have proven it. You can live in private. Okay. You can use a trust. This operates a little bit differently than LLCs and things like that. All those details we go over there, but exit valve. Every problem we have, you can trace it back to the fact the judicial system got flipped on its head and the money got flipped on its head because we went bankrupt. It's that simple. We're in receivership. Okay. And so just clear eyes on it. Okay, so this is last. We're going to finish with this. This is Steve Bannon. Oh, hold on. I got to do that little share screen thing you got to do here, make it official. So Steve Bannon talking about the importance of the next 200 days.
As itself, the deep state just basically, Biden was a front for it, just threw him out of the way and ran it themselves. Some of the same names you'll see popping up, Lisa Monaco. Others in the Biden regime are some of the cast of characters back in 2015. It's only going to happen if we put our shoulder to the wheel. We have to have Tulsi Gabbard's back. We have to have DNI's back. We have to demand answers. We have to continue to put the pressure on, either for a special prosecutor or someone at the Justice Department to take these investigations on as their sole responsibility and to keep hammering the courts. You see what they're doing right now. You have Alina Habab, who's President Trump's selection in New Jersey. They're trying to remove her even as we speak. 15 federal judges. President Trump's on the onslaught of this radical judiciary. I believe he's won 15 of the 17 or 14 of the 16 that have gone to the Supreme Court. But every day they're trying to tie him up in a court to make sure that he can't fulfill his Article 2 power. We're in the deciding moment now. As I told you before, the first 10 years coming down the golden escalator, the next 200 days are going to be the most important in President Trump's entire time since he's come and sought political office, because you have the convergence of the crises from the mass deportations, which the radical left, plus a lot of the apparatus has just said, no, it's not going to happen. You may be able to get rid of a handful of bad guys, but that's it. And that only scratches the surface. To the war in Ukraine, the war in Persia, it's all converging right now. And that's why you've seen, and Tulsi Gabbard had the courage, yes, the physical courage to actually unlock the coup that happened in 2016.
Yeah. There's a lot of things converging right now. They're not on one track, right? They're not on one track. You've got immigration, deportation. They're fighting the courts. They're trying to expose whatever Epstein stuff is left to be exposed. The Clinton cover up, the Comey nonsense, the Russia. I mean, it's huge. It's huge. I have low expectations, but I have high hopes. And I hope we all share that. All right. Don't forget to visit leftbehindwithout.org, 1776live.us. I am doing an Ignite presentation this Thursday at 4 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Mountain, 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern. It's a live webinar that you can get on. You must register to get on it. It is a private webinar, so you must register. You need to go 1776live.us to register for it. You'll get a link. The room only is open for 5 minutes. If you don't get in there on time, the room gets closed and no one else will be admitted. So if you'd like to see what we're saying behind the wall, and it's nothing really that special, but either way, come check out what we're doing over at 1776, where I present to you our epic solution to all the problems I talk about here on this podcast. Do the Amish pay property taxes? The answer is no. In fact, I could go on and on about how the Amish prove that you can actually be free, but you have to not engage with the government. The point is not to contract. In a world of commercial law, you are bound by your contracts. And there's a lot of contracts. I'm not going to go into some of them that they are, but let's just say when you're born, your parents sign a little thing called a birth certificate, and they hand it to the dock tender as they deliver the merchandise from the waters that break. And then it gets registered. Reg means king, star means flag, and they put the king's flag on that merchandise as they give you a registration number based on a birth certificate surrendered to a dock tender. The Amish don't do that. No, I know some people are like, oh, you're going to live without a birth certificate? Yeah, but then you also have to use the horse and buggy because you can't get a driver's license without one. So yes, there's a trade-off to it. But yes, we talk about that kind of stuff over at 1776, what's possible. The Amish use some different tools in order to maintain their liberty. Yes, they get pressure from the United States government, and that mainly happens when they interact in commerce, like when they try to sell things to us, the English, as they call us. Anyways, yes, a lot to say about that. Check it out over 1776 Live. It's not just all about the Amish, folks, but yes, they are an example of what it means to be truly free. I have said this: they are as close to a legitimate indigenous people on this continent. They have maintained their way of living in the same fashion and manner, generally, as they have since before the creation of the United States. They're as close as you can get to an indigenous people. The Native Americans are living in the way they've lived, right? It's pretty incredible. And my contention is this: you can be Amish with a cell phone. There's a way to make it happen. All right, guys. So check us out over there, leftbehindwithout.org and peasantsperspective.com. And yeah, that's it. We'll talk to you guys again tomorrow. Maybe we're going to end it. Can't